Members, it is the appointed time and we have a quorum. Let me call to order the meeting of the Joint Subcommittee to follow up on issues relating to the redevelopment, maintenance and management of aged buildings. First item, work of the Home Affairs Department in building management and support measures for aged buildings. Can we now invite the administration team to come in? Attending for today's meeting, we have the Deputy Director of Home Affairs, Ms. Vigo Wong, and Assistant Director of Home Affairs, Mr. Alfred Lee, and also Senior Administration Officer from HAD, Mr. Jack Ho. We'll now invite the HAD to introduce the paper. Thank you, Chair. This paper is supplied in response to an earlier request of the Joint Subcommittee, and it aims to brief members on the work of the HAD on building management and major features of HAD's support measures. Building management is the responsibility of owners. However, we have been assisting property owners in discharging of their management responsibilities. With regard to the setting up of OCs and also the powers and rules of operation of OCs, we have provided the legal framework under the Building Management Ordinance, and we have been helping them in other aspects, including the formation of OC, public education, advisory services, and also dispute resolution services. So we can provide a one-stop service to them. In the past few years, we have been renewing our services. In terms of aged buildings, under the CCF, Community Care Fund, we have a subsidy scheme for owners of aged buildings, and last year we implemented the central platform for building management. We have prepared a PowerPoint, and Mr. Alfred Lee will be taking you through the proposals using the PowerPoint. Right, I will use a PowerPoint in order to introduce to you how we have been assisting owners of aged buildings in building management. As the DD said, the HAD plays the role of assisting owners. I think the PowerPoint is not displayed. Sorry about the technical glitch. I think members have a hard copy of the PowerPoint in front of them. Yes, we all have a hard copy in front of us. Does it work? If not, we can rely on the hard copy and you can just continue. Well, yes. Can it be shown? Perhaps you can just carry on. Well, maybe now I think it is showing. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. As the DD said, we play the role of enabling or empowering owners to discharge their building management responsibilities. We provide the legal framework through the Building Management Ordinance, or BMO. It helps owners to form OCs, and the BMO also stipulates the formation, powers, rules, and operation and monitoring mechanism of OCs in order to facilitate owners in setting up and also monitoring the operation of the OCs. In all our 18 districts, we have liaison teams. Our staff will help to form OCs, attend OCs meetings upon invitation, answer inquiries on building management and organize training courses. All in all, you can take a look at this PowerPoint, and these are the 4 areas, and they have been mentioned by the DD. We'd like to provide a holistic kind of support in helping owners in discharging their duties on BM. So first, let me talk about formation of OCs, and then secondly, I will talk about public education, and 3 advisory services, and 4 dispute resolution. Talking about formation of OCs, very often we target 3 new buildings. And there will be another agenda item in today's meeting on this one, so I won't label on this one here. As the DD mentioned, we have the CCF, Community Care Fund. We provide subsidies in order to help owners set up OCs to manage their buildings. And in terms of public education, the HAD would like to do this. We hope that office bearers of OCs will understand the BMO and also the stipulations therein. So the first point is about the LEAD program. This targets the officers of OCs, and this is a kind of training program for them. We will invite newly formed OCs or OCs with new members to attend this program. Tertiary institutes run this program for us. After basic training, we also have advanced LEAD programs, so we can target certain issues, including legal issues, which are addressed by professionals. Secondly, as the DD said, we have the central platform on building management. We use this platform to share with owners information on BM.
And our colleagues from the 18 districts will arrange from time to time seminars or talks on issues of common concern and provide them with information. Besides education and setting up OCs, we also provide advisory services as shown on the screen. Together with the Law Society, we are organizing free legal advice service. And this is held in the center of the HAD in Wenchai and also one center in Kowloon. 45-minute free legal advice service. And OCs or owners could register for help. So it's a verbal 45-minute advisory service. And we also provide other information services, that is the OCs, advisory services, targeting newly formed OCs or OCs that are about to be, that have just been set up. So the chairman of the OCs may not be clear about all the provisions in the ordinance. So through telephone or writing or other channels, we can provide them with information to help them prepare for OC meetings. Besides that, point 3 is that there's a pilot scheme on advisory services to OCs. In 2018, this scheme was launched, and we hope to, particularly, we hire a professional management company to provide the services targeting new OCs or newly elected management committee members who may not be familiar with the operations of OCs. So we hope that through the property management company, they can be given some legal knowledge about the requirements under the ordinance, and also they may also attend OCs or management committee meetings. And there will also be information provided on managing a building. And as I said, for some buildings which need to carry out repair work, they may need to apply for a subsidy from the government. So the property management company will provide them with assistance in that regard. In last year's policy address, it's mentioned that we will regularize the scheme. Another point is about dispute resolution services. You all know that, in a building with so many owners, the OCs, owners themselves, there might be disputes. So therefore, we've launched a series of measures in the past few years. You can see in the slides that there could be mediation services, and particularly there is also a dispute resolution service for building management, and this is a pilot scheme proposed in the policy address last year, and in April 2018 it was launched. It focused primarily on providing retired judicial officers or judges to offer mediation services for the parties concerned, so that there can be authoritative figures helping to resolve the disputes for the parties concerned in a speedy way. And that saves the parties concerned to hire lawyers and can have the dispute resolved. And also like to introduce to you one more scheme as shown in the last point on the slide, that is the free outreach legal advice services. It's not yet launched, but we are discussing with the Law Society about it. The purpose of it is as shown on the slide. We have a free legal advisory service under which OCs can go to a designated location to meet with lawyers. But for this latest scheme, we will invite the lawyers to go directly to the OC meetings, so that through direct participation in the meeting, the OCs can get help in resolving any legal problems they have or questions they have. We hope to launch this service as soon as possible. And whether the building is old or not, all the services mentioned are applicable. And now I'm going to provide services targeting old or aged buildings who are 30 years or above. As for the old OCs, there's a subsidized scheme to subsidize buildings with a history of more than 30 years to help them comply with the law. And in the daily management of the building, they may need to supply or provide documents to a land registry or to take out third-party risk insurance, or there may be a need for lift annual checks or clear up of the fire assets. So we're going to provide this service on a reimbursement basis. And during the period when the service is being implemented, the OCs can have the 50% maximum of the expenses reimbursed. The ceiling will be 24,000 for an OC. This is now the third phase of the scheme, and we have had reviews of the scheme, and you can find in the slide that from 2012 to 2018, you will see that the scope of subsidy has expanded, as you can see on the red lines on the right-hand side of the slide. That is the inspection of lifts and the public liability insurance. That's also covered under the community care fund. And also in the third phase, the amount, well, first of all, we've increased the amount of subsidy, and the subsidy, as in the beginning, is 20,000. Now the ceiling for the subsidy is 24,000, and the eligibility criteria have been relaxed. In the past, you can see that in urban areas, every is 120,000 for the taxable rate, and now in the new territories, it's been raised to 162,000 for the rateable value, the limit on the rateable value. And we've seen the effect of the scheme. By March this year, we have subsidized more than 2,700 OCs, involving $34 million. In this picture, you can see that through the subsidy support, you can see some of the fire assets in the old buildings being cleared up. You can see the differences before the clear up and after. In the next slide, you will see the actual electrical appliances checkup being done. Besides community care fund, as mentioned by the DD, we have a central building management platform, because there have been views that we should provide more information for OZs or owners who need to carry out large-scale repair work. So we want to provide more support for them, targeting particularly buildings that have received from the Housing Department or Fire Service Department notices of mandatory inspections of windows or fire prevention orders. So through the platform, we will invite housing department, fire services, or electrical and mechanical services department, Hong Kong police, IC, and so forth to inform the OCs about what they need to take note of in case of large-scale repair work. So the residents and the government departments can have direct contact with each other and ask questions at the spot. And where there's a need, they know who to contact later on. And for these services, it's been offered for more than half a year because it was launched last September. By March this year, we have arranged for 7 talks participated by more than 500 people. So that's the end of our presentation. Thank you. So members, would you have any questions for the administration? The first one is Lo Wai Kwok. 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. As for the follow-up on the management repair of aged buildings, the Home Affairs Department for the owners has provided information, legal advice, and support in relation to repair. I mean, it's something worthy of our support, of course. In terms of building maintenance, particularly for the older owners, they may have little idea about what to do, particularly if there are illegal structures involved. I believe that the HAD, together with the Housing Department, must have received information about various similar cases and requests for help from owners. You know, for aged buildings, I mean, there must have been long-standing illegal structures. And once they receive the order from the Housing Department for maintenance, elderly owners, you know, when it comes to, you know, their savings, they may not have adequate resources to carry out the repair maintenance work, and they don't even know who to get help from. So they may be feeling helpless. So I'd like to ask the HAD, okay, how are you going to help, provide concrete help to these elderly owners so they can get the problem solved and really get help, the help they need, and get concrete support from you, of course. Didi? Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Low. On this, in our introduction on the Building Management Central Platform, in the PowerPoint presentation, we believe that the platform can provide owners with actual help, because this is targeting owners who have received the orders for mandatory building or window inspection, and also or other orders from the Fire Services Department. We've noticed that many owners, they may feel at a loss when they receive the orders. So together with the Housing Department and Fire Services Department's orders, we would inform the affected owners about the presence of such a platform. And relevant departments, including Fire Service Department and Buildings Department, they would provide information to them. And if there are illegal structures, I'm sure they can also offer the information to help them. If there's a need for financial subsidy, the platform can actually liaise them with ULA and Buildings Department staff. Last time, we actually introduced to you the kind of financial support available from the government. So the central platform, we think, can provide not just information, but also financial support. And it will be directly in contact with the affected owners. Sorry. For mandatory inspection of buildings and windows, the group of owners can get together. But then for illegal structures, we're talking about individual owners here. So the individual owners may not know what to do. That's what I'm asking about, not help in general. Yeah, illegal structures, please. Yes, on that, I believe that when the repair orders or demolition orders, they are supposed to be issued by the buildings department. And once we receive requests for help from residents, we will pass them to buildings department and put them in contact with each other. Mr. Wan Shukin. Thank you, Chairman. Let me confirm that I know Ms. Wong in the past have done a lot in following up on the cases. I have no doubt about the efforts, but I just want to know about the effects. I'm sure it's been mentioned in other meetings. In the paper, you said that you tried to target on weaknesses from the past. For example, some OCs, when they face differences of opinions or disputes, and when they take the case to the HAD, they found that there's still help available because the department did not really state clearly about the legal, explain to them the legal concerns, whether particular acts are legal or not. Maybe because the HAD staff are not legal professionals and they dare not challenge the parties concerned. I know that you have all sorts of services available, for example, legal advisory service or the dispute resolution advisory group or mediation service. They are just services to be offered at different stages, but ultimately they may not resolve the issue, and because there are cases in which there is a clear breach of the law and yet the owners cannot find any resolution, or the OCs would think that they can get away with it and there's no solution. And now you're going to launch the free outreach building management legal advisory service. How many people do you have to man the service? And after that's done, if that still fails to resolve disputes, would the department have any backup plans?
Will there be legal support, including subsidies and even funds, to assist them to find a legal solution? You have to do it. Otherwise, this will be a vicious cycle. You are working with a wider scope. You are helping them at different stages, but in the end, you are not the solution. You may have outreach service. If there is a dispute, I can send somebody to your estate and tell you you are wrong. But people don't listen. Therefore, you should think of another step in helping 3-nil buildings or estates without a strong management capability. So first, what is the manpower level of your outreach service? And 2, whether you will be more proactive if this extra step will not help. Didi, thank you. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Wen for his recognition of our past efforts in improving building management. First, when our liaison officers attend OC meetings, we will provide training to increase their confidence. But then, we must understand that their role is to provide information. It is not for them to decide on the spot who is right, who is wrong. Therefore, if it is about information and legal provisions, we do encourage our staff members to provide support and assistance to owners there and then. Sorry, can I interject? Well, sometimes your staff are unwilling to quote from the law because people can then reach a judgment that actually they are not confident in even quoting the law. Thank you for that reminder, Mr. Wen. We will remind our frontline staff that if it is about interpretation of the law, and if it is a kind of factual interpretation, in fact, we encourage them to provide that. However, if it is about legal interpretation, I hope members will understand that our liaison officers are not legal professionals. That is why we provide support in different ways. That is because we understand that we are constrained. Well, let me talk about our outreach services. We provided together with the Law Society. It is a pilot for 3 years. We hope that by providing free outreach legal advice service, well, this is free to the public, but we do provide some payment to lawyers from the Law Society who attend these sessions. So in fact, it is a kind of monetary assistance to owners because we pay the lawyers. We hope that this pilot can help us enhance our support to OCs. During the 3 years of the pilot, we will review the effectiveness and we will keep it under review. Well, I can ask a simple follow-up action. In fact, what she said, I already knew. I was asking about the manpower level, and secondly, I think that even the outreach service would not be able to provide a solution, and I was asking about the next step. Well, time is up, but can you briefly answer the question? We estimate that in the first year there will be a quota of 200. As for follow-up, if, say, a lawyer cannot tackle an issue on the spot, and as I was explaining, we have other services and assistance provided by, amongst others, retired judges. We'll continue to review the situation. We will have a review after 3 years. So does it mean, Chairman, that through subsidizing owners in order for them to seek a legal solution, that will not be something you can consider at the moment? Is that right? Well, as I was saying, this outreach legal advice service is a kind of monetary assistance for the provision of legal service. And I think we have taken a big step forward. We have to do things in a gradual manner. We should give this pilot a try. Later on, we will see whether there will be room for further improvement. Mr. Wilson Orr. Chairman, the HAD has done a lot in supporting aged buildings. That should be recognized. But unfortunately, when we are in the districts, we have heard a lot of criticism against the HAD in that you are not doing exactly what they need you to do, and sometimes you start with a bang and you end with a whimper. In other words, you are not helping them. I think the DD is leading her team here in order to listen to our views, right? So, number one, in your PPT, PowerPoint, I think it is just a rundown of your services. But then I think nowadays we need to look at value for money. And DD, you need to tell us how many people have benefited, how many problems have been resolved. I think you should provide all the figures. And secondly, when we are in the districts, the biggest number of problems have to do with maintenance. Now, in your paper, you say that maintenance complaints have jumped from 209 in 2016 to 322 in 2018. I think this is not satisfactory. It goes to show that owners are minded about the maintenance of their buildings. I'd like to ask you whether you have analyzed such complaints. Is it because of a lack of support on your part, or what are the problems that are not resolved by the small owners? DD, you said the Law Society will be helping in this pilot for 3 years. But in fact, it's as easy, isn't it? You should enlist the help of other professional bodies as well. I know many people in the community are happy to help HAD do a better job with regard to building management. And then, in the districts, if, say, the BD says there should be monitoring inspection of windows, well, the OC immediately contacted the HAD, but then they were told that the OC should fend for itself. Well, the OC was very disappointed because they expected you to give them the information to small owners as to, say, for example, what should be done if there is mandatory inspection of windows. Also, if there are initiatives on building management, you should take the proactive step to explain the new measures to small owners. You should provide a platform for such consultation. And also, you have been providing such a big array of services. You say you have done so much, but have you asked the views of the users? Don't tell me you have given them a questionnaire. Have you operated any workshop to gauge the views of the users, to ask them whether the services are tailored to their needs? And also, lastly, you really need to listen to me. You need to enhance the training of your frontline staff. Very frankly, you send a community organizer to the OC, he doesn't know anything. If you send a liaison officer, he knows something. I think you should review the training of your staff. Please answer all these questions. DD, on training of frontline staff. In fact, when liaison officers join the grade, there is training provided on BM. And we also continue to share cases and in-depth knowledge of the law to experienced liaison officers. And also, individual officers have been sent to read master courses. Well, there is always room to improve vis-a-vis training, and I thank the member for that reminder. We hope we can encourage our staff to answer questions and provide assistance with more confidence when they attend meetings. Now, apart from the Law Society, are we enlisting the help of other professional bodies? Well, in fact, in the PowerPoint, as you can see, we have this BM Dispute Advisory Group. We'd like to thank the different professional bodies for their pro bono service. There are surveyors, engineers, accountants, and also PM professionals. They feature on this panel of advisors on BM disputes. And also, we have the help of the Hong Kong Mediation Center and Hong Kong Mediation Council in helping to provide free mediation service. Therefore, indeed, apart from the Law Society, we have been enlisting the free service of other professional bodies, so we can provide support to owners in different aspects. As to value for money for our services, in fact, in our paper, we have given you the number of people and cases for each service. And in addition to questionnaires, we did conduct face-to-face interviews to ask them about their views on the services provided. Over 90% have said they were happy with the service. We'll continue to enhance our work. Vincent Zhang. As other members said, the HAD has done a lot on BM and they have been improving. Over a decade ago, I started to be involved. At that time, when HAD staff came, we did not feel their presence. We did not feel that they were gone either. And I asked myself why that was the case. Well, 10-odd years ago, they might have to read up many provisions of the law and they would not know what to say, and they did not know what position they should take faced with questions from OCs. But now I think things have improved over the decade. They have been given more information and knowledge. And it is already good if they can quote from the ordinance and advise the OCs. So to be fair, I think there has been improvement, but as Mr. O said, it is not enough. Society is progressing. Aged building owners have to comply with new stipulations and provisions. Say there is the mandatory building and window inspection scheme, and there are fire service installation requirements, and these are expensive. So it is important for the HAD to continue to assist them. I'd like to make 3 points. First, the figures. Under the Sham Shui Po District Council, we have a dedicated group on BM. I think it's important for us to know how many buildings have been helped by the HAD in a year. Say how many 3-nil buildings have formed OCs and how many ambassadors have been sent. I think we should be able to track all these figures. We encourage your frontline staff to continue to do this. And also, how many mandatory inspection schemes have you helped? If the HAD can come to grips with such figures, I'm sure you can map out your services more appropriately. I asked the HAD to work them out for me, but it seemed to me that they had never done this before. In fact, your frontline staff are feeding you with the raw data. I hope you can give me these figures. Secondly, manpower. I can tell you that your staff were rotated much too often a decade ago. Some of them also resigned because the work was too hard. In your report for 2018-19, there are 138 liaison officers. But is that manpower level enough for the huge number of buildings in Hong Kong? You said you would have in-depth training for your staff. There will be induction and refresher courses, etc. I hope your training will be more systematic.
Thirdly, is about interdepartmental coordination. Now, whether it's about water leakage or street issues, the Home Affairs Department may need to provide support to them and also coordinate with other government departments. So are there any small groups under the Home Affairs Department to contact other government departments to carry out coordination work with the residents? Didi? Thank you. On Mr. Chang's point, the effectiveness of our services, let me report to you on a few things. On professional building management advisory service, we're going to talk about it in our next paper, but because all of you are still concerned about the 3 new buildings, since the provision of the service began, we have carried out more than 70,000 home visits to 3,000 odd homes. And we've also assisted more than 300 OCs to apply for all sorts of maintenance support for buildings. And we've also helped more than 200 buildings procure third-party insurance. In terms of RLAs, we have recruited more than 4,000 resident ambassadors. So those are important indicators. Of course, we'll continue to do a good job. And as for number of liaison officers, in the past few years, the HAD has kept increasing manpower. In the past 4 years, the number has increased 2 times. Sorry, 20%. And in 1920, we're going to further increase the number of the officers to 144. So over the past 4 years, in terms of number of officers, the number has increased by 20%. In terms of increased officers, liaison officers, in providing support in other areas, we have launched one service after another. So we are not relying on liaison officers alone, though they perform an integral role. As I said, for some interdepartmental collaboration, the frontline building management groups once they are aware of the residents' needs, they would relay the needs to the relevant government departments. If there is interdepartmental efforts needed, then the district office would play a coordination role to help the OCs and owners and provide whatever assistance they need. For the liaison officers number, I think we can look further into it. 144 to deal with more than 10,000 buildings. Well, that's actually heavy workload. I know that some of the officers are working overnight. So now you've increased by 20% the number of liaison officers. That's not a big increase. I think you need to review the figure again. Next one, Lam Chatting. Several points. The workload of liaison officers is so heavy. Besides doing building management, some district issues are also handled by them, and they need to keep doing the liaison work. I think they're really short-staffed. And sometimes the OC meetings, owners meetings, the Home Affairs Department will just find some part-timers, maybe community officers, part-time community officers to attend those meetings on behalf of HAD. I feel sorry for them because they are often students. How are they going to handle meetings attended by hundreds of people or even thousands of people? And often the issues discussed at OC meetings are so complicated and involve legal points. And you want them to regard the officers as representing the government, but they can't do the job. If they can't answer any questions raised by the owners, then the owners would blame them and just regard them as a waste of public money. If you ask students to play the role of the officers, it's really actually too bad for them. You need to largely increase the number of liaison officers. The training needs to be stepped up, because often I've seen officers who dare not delve into the legal points, even though you're saying they're not supposed to have legal background. But as the representatives of the district office, they are obliged to explain the building management ordinance to the owners, the requirements under the law. So they need to be familiar with the ordinance itself, and they should dare to explain the details to them. You know, in heated debates at the committees meetings, sometimes they dare not speak out. And when there are large disputes, I don't know where the owners a corporation chairman does it on purpose or not, they wouldn't let the officers speak. And in the minutes of the meetings, or in the issuing of circulars by the chairman, and the chairman would say that the district office has already had a witness at the meetings. So you're really put the HAD or the district office on the table. And now the Land Tribunal does not offer legal aid assistance, so sometimes the chairman has to delve into their own pockets to pay for litigations. So I think when it comes to cases that involve public interest, if the small owners need to pay on their own or to contribute to a fund to take a case to court, then I think you need to consider legal aid service should cover cases involving public interest, that the owners concerned can apply for legal aid so that the OCs that have abused their power can have their powers restrained because of the risk of legal battles, because the owners together would not have to waste all their savings and feel pressured because of a lack of legal aid. And also, DG, I'm sure you have done a lot of work trying to improve building management with your colleagues. But the BNO's amendment, what has happened to it? What is the latest progress? When do you expect the amendment bill to be tabled before LegCo? Because it involves a lot of technical issues, and I'm sure there are diverse views. Can you quickly complete the amendment of the ordinance, because the ordinance is now full of loopholes? Didi, thank you, Mr. Lam, for your question. As for the liaison officers, let me reiterate once again, we continue to strengthen training and encourage them to, when attending meetings, provide more information. And we've also noticed that our statistics show that for OC meetings, about 70% of them are attended by our liaison officers. Only 30% are attended by our community workers. We've noticed that if there are controversial issues to be discussed at the committees, we would ask our district office to send more experienced officers so as to provide support to the owners. I'm not going to repeat what I said. We have the newly launched advisory service for owners through a professional property management company that can offer more relevant assistance to OCs and owners. As for legal aid service to resolve cases involving building management, I know that the legal aid authority has looked into this issue, but I know they've been to LegCo explaining to members and saying to you that they would monitor the situation closely and wait and see whether there's a need for improvement later on. As for the Building Management Ordinance Amendment, last time, that is in 2017 November, we reported to the Home Affairs panel and made proposals to the panel. Last year, we had worked hard on further studying the amendments, and we know that it takes time to amend the law. In August last year, we've launched the Code of Practice, the updated version. Early this year, we launched an executive guidelines. Hopefully, you can see that we have been preparing for the amendment to the ordinance. Hopefully, by the end of this year, we can report back to the Home Affairs panel on the progress of amending the PMO. So, DT, can you tell us when do you expect the amendment bill to be tabled before LegCo? Any timetable? We hope to do it as soon as possible because, as I said, once we've launched the updated Code of Practice and executive guidelines, we hope that that can be put into practice, and we'll see what the users think of them, and we'll review the situation, and hopefully before the end of this year, we'll report back to the panel. And I hope that we can propose the amendment bill to LegCo for scrutiny ASAP. Well, I hope they can do it before the end of the year because they're only guidelines, what you mentioned. They're not statutory requirements. They're right and wrong, but then, only legal provisions provide absolute guarantee or protection for owners. Next one, Jeremy Tam. Just then you talk about there are 140 liaison officers. It's not just about the number, but the training and experience that matters. I've met quite a number of them. Some only know about the basic points when they're at a committee, when there's quorum, and then they're there. But when owners have no idea what they should do or what can be done, they will look to the officers for help. And I've seen some officers who cannot provide any answers, who don't know what to say, how to answer the questions. I don't know whether your training give them any tips for Q&A, because it would be just the same sorts of questions to be asked. For example, after a meeting, where they can move any ad hoc motion to change a decision made, or whether they can, in AOB, insert a special agenda item, that sort of thing. Particularly on issues related to money, like building management, those are controversial issues, sensitive issues. So the officers need to be familiar with the deeds of mutual confidence, and to a certain extent, they also should know well about window inspection and building maintenance. So can the department tell us for the liaison officers what sort of training would they have? And would you provide them with any data bank for Q&A so they can share information? Is there a platform for this 140 plus officers to have exchanges on the past cases that they've dealt with, and they can share the experience? Because in some old districts, single blocks or compared to large residential estates, the issues might be different. So in your training, would you provide a platform for them to have exchanges on the experiences in dealing with different districts? Didi? Mr. Tam, thank you for your question. For training for liaison officers, particularly the newly recruited ones, we would do the briefing for them, but on an ongoing basis, we also have thematic workshops and talks for experienced officers to tell them about the actual cases and also case law. We've also recruited tertiary institutions to provide training sessions for our colleagues responsible for building management. I just heard your views, and further on, we'll further enhance the training. But simply put, we do have prepare for them a set of usually asked questions and the answers for the officers to get hold of, and they can share their experiences. Thank you. Is that all officers will be given the same training, or will the arrangement be different for different districts? Is it that for them, for the entire grade? Is it that in the first year they will have to go through that sort of training, and then is it compulsory for them to attend forums, sharings, or classes offered by tertiary institutions after some time? Or is it that the training is only offered for officers in particular districts like Shamshipo or what?
副處長。
TD. About induction training, it is done across the board. When they join the grade, all liaison officers are given induction training on BM because this is a task common to all liaison officers. As for workshops, our headquarters division provide the training to staff of all districts. As to whether everyone can attend, it depends on the work schedule of individual officers. But even if they can't attend, the training materials will be distributed to all liaison officers so they can peruse them when they are free. Okay, it's my turn. Didi, you must have heard members' comments on liaison officers. I like to say that, indeed, the 138 liaison officers are not dedicated staff, and they are not performing as expected. They give people the impression that you are just putting up a show by sending liaison officers to the meetings, and perhaps they are acting as the front of the HAD in rationalizing certain matters. If something should crop up during a meeting, liaison officers of the HAD just won't speak up. They won't point out that a certain procedure is not proper or not aligned with the guidelines. They just act as observers. They are not participants to the meeting. They are just like a witness. Can you consider making this grade a dedicated grade? And if anything improper is spotted, can they please speak up And can this be minuted? But if a meeting that is problematic can still carry on, I think the HAD should do some follow-up. Thank you, Chair. About the role of liaison officers at meetings, as I said, they are there to provide information and also procedures contained in the ordinance. Now, whether they would point out what is right, what is wrong at the meetings, I think frontline staff have to maintain neutrality. But on requirements of the ordinance, they may remind participants of the meeting about that, and we believe lawyers of the OCs may be there at the meetings. My experience is that our staff may not say what is right, what is wrong, but then they may give the advice that there should be legal opinions sought for certain disputes, and if necessary, we can arrange for free legal advice from the Law Society. This is the kind of assistance we can provide. As to whether the grade can become a dedicated grade on BM, well, you may understand that the liaison officer grade is one of the grades of HAD, and BM is part of their work. But they are also responsible for district administration, rural matters. So liaison officers do work on different aspects, and they help to build a network in the districts, and different aspects and parts of their job do come together in a complementary manner. Therefore, the present arrangement is that they are responsible for BM, but then they also have other duties which will help them do BM even better because they already have the network in the community. As for experienced liaison officers, in fact, they may work 5-6 years in one area before they are redeployed. We believe this will afford a certain degree of stability, but we don't want our staff to just be stuck in one position, and we need to strike a balance here. Well, let me just add, if you look at BM and liaison with OCs, well, in fact, that can be singled out for certain positions of staff because there is so much to do. Well, you say this is part of the liaison work in the community, but I think there is no conflict between our views. Second round, Loai Kwok. Thank you. My question in the first round was about unauthorized building works and not mandatory inspection. If the BD issues an order, owners are usually at a loss as to what can be done. But I'm most unhappy with the answer given by the DD. The removal or maintenance order may come from the BD, and if it is just a normal UBW, they may not need your support from the HAD. But what I'm really saying is that owners have received such an order and they did not know what to do. For a few years, I myself was at the Building Ordinance Appeal Board. Many of the cases were in this category. Acting according to the BD or BO, the BD will issue orders, and very seldom they will rescind the orders. Very often, this will go to the appeal board, and the board will be sympathetic by extending the compliance period. What can the HAD do for these cases? When you say this is within the jurisdiction of the BD. Well, we all know that, don't we? But this has everything to do with management of aged buildings and improvement of conditions at aged buildings. It is not that every small owner of the building receives an order, but in some cases, a few small owners may receive the orders, and certain owners may be able to resolve the problem on their own, but old owners may not have a big saving, and they are there living in their own aged building unit, and they will not know where to turn for help. Didi? Well, if it is a question of unauthorized building works, since the BD is the authority, and if an order is issued, we can refer the request for help to the BD. But it depends whether the UBW is particular to a particular unit or whether it is in the common parts of the building, and if there is a dispute about responsibility, well, we can provide assistance. As I was saying, we have the panel of advisors on BM disputes, and this panel has helped to resolve the issue of responsibility if the UBW is in common parts. If the UBW is indeed in the common parts of a building, we can provide certain services. But if the UBW is only about a certain unit, and if the BD has placed the responsibility on the owner himself, then if assistance is required, well, we can only refer it to the BD. But if it is a dispute about responsibility, we do have a series of support services which have been detailed, and these can be provided by the liaison officers. Okay. Let's go to the next item. We have the same team of officers, which is on support measures tailored for 3 new buildings provided by the HAD. DD, can you walk us through the paper? Thank you, Chair. Well, in the last item, we have already introduced the general support services on BM, and we mostly targeted at buildings without OCs. But there are also buildings which do not have OCs or any owners, corporations, or any form of residence organizations, and they do not engage property management companies or BMCs. We know that the owners may face bigger challenges in BM. In order to help 3 new building owners improve BM, the HAD headquarters and HAD district offices support them in different ways. We provide building management professional advisory services, and we also enlist ambassadors. And also in different districts, we may roll out different support services according to the needs of the different districts. I can now hand the floor to the AD in order to take you through the PowerPoint. As was said, we face this problem of 3 new buildings. From the information gathered by our liaison officers on the front line, there are 5,300 buildings that do not have OCs or any form of residence organizations or which do not engage PMCs. And these are the 3 new buildings. Now, how are they different from other buildings? If you have an OC or PMC, there is a platform for people to discuss matters and forge consensuses. But 3 new buildings have no such organizations, and there is no PMC. If it is a small building with a small number of owners, then it is a simple matter and they may not be a problem. But if the 3 new building is a big one, and if the owners are not interested in BM, then there may be an impact on the daily management of that building. And if the issues are not tackled properly, there may be problems with building maintenance, for example. And this may pose a risk or have implications on the building itself and also public safety. The HAD would like to help these buildings. As you can see from this slide, which has been seen for the last item, we have been providing these different services to buildings. But then 3 new buildings have no platform. The first thing we'd like to do is to help them form an OC. When there is an OC, all the support services of the HAD can be provided to the OC. But then sometimes, even if we work to our level best, we cannot really help form an OC. But in that case, we still want to do something. If some owners are interested, we will help to provide as much information to them as possible so that when they feel that the time is ripe, we will then be able to help them form an OC. And the most important service we can provide to 3 new buildings is the PM Professional Advisory Service scheme. We engage PMCs on our own to provide free professional advisory and other services to the owners. These owners will then know exactly that it is their responsibility to manage their own building. And we want to enhance their awareness in this aspect, and then hopefully they will form an OC, and then we will be able to help them do building maintenance through the PMCs. When they face particular difficulties at the startup stage, we do try to help them with regard to basic concepts of BM and also forming of the OC. And eventually, we hope they can set up an OC so that they can take care of themselves. Now, the eligibility for this scheme will be like this. It should be a residential or composite building aged 30 years or above. And we, of course, target larger buildings.
So the rentable value in urban areas will not be in excess of $162,000. For the new territories, the cap is $124,000. We're also targeting older buildings where some common parts, common areas are in need of repair. And also, as I said, this is for 3 new buildings, or maybe buildings with OCs, and yet for some reasons the OC had stopped operation. So we want to help the OC kickstart its work again. And this service actually has been provided since 2011, so now we've reached the 3rd stage. So we are mainly targeting buildings that are not covered in the or not dealt with in phase 1 and phase 2. If you look at this slide, the scope of services, basically we would get property management company staff to knock on the door of each household to find out about the situation of the building and see if they're interested in participating as ambassadors, resident ambassadors, or help with the setting up of OZs. And also the property management company, we also send staff to the building to check on the situation of the common areas and come up with a review report. We hope that through the work, if we discover owners through home visits who like to be our ambassadors, then whether the district office or residents can get the building issues resolved with the help of the ambassadors. And what we want to achieve most is to facilitate the setting up of OCs and also restore the operation of OCs, some OCs that have stopped working. And for old buildings or owners who are old, they may not be well aware of the legal requirements. So we hope that through the service, we can, for the drafting of agenda or how to facilitate discussion and how to write minutes, all these, we would provide help to the parties. And also, as I said, for the 3 new buildings, the older buildings, they often face management and maintenance issues. So we hope that through the property management company, the OCs can get help in applying, like to the Development Bureau, subsidy for maintenance or loan schemes. Should they decide to have their windows inspected or carry out some works, we would help them to comply with the procedures. And for buildings with established OCs, would help them take out third-party risk insurance. We also assist the OCs in the purchase and installation of energy-saving equipment. And as mentioned, we'll provide training on building management to office bearers of OCs, owners, and RLAs. Besides, the scope of services to be provided by the property management company, we also ask the company, since they have direct contact with the owners in the 3 new buildings, we hope that the property management company can be the channel of communication between the government and the 3 new buildings. Because there's some information that may not be provided by the district office, so I hope that they can help disseminate them. Like in the summer, through property management company, we may disseminate anti-mosquito message to OCs through the company, or when an OC is established, when the time comes for the maintenance, during rainy seasons, there could be mosquitoes bred. So through the property management company, we remind owners to pay attention to the anti-mosquito measures. DD also said just then that in the amendment of the Building Management Ordinance, for the Code of Practice and Executive Guidelines, when the OC is established, we hope that through the property management company, the new guidelines or leaflets on the new requirements can be disseminated to the IC, so we know what the government is expecting, and so they can comply with the guidelines. Now I have some statistics. Just then, in the previous round of discussion, Didi also mentioned them to you already, but it's a recap here. On the whole, there are 3 phases. Number of OCs reactivated since then, since phase 1, number more than 500, about 500, and the number of buildings with assistance provided totally more than 300. To help the buildings to appoint consultants, contractors, more than 170 in total. Number of buildings with assistance provided to procure third-party risk insurance, but it's not covered in the contract in phase 1, and the service began in phase 2, so now about 300 buildings have benefited in that regard. Number of RLAs recruited through the scheme, almost 2,600 have been recruited. Now, our LA scheme, as mentioned, the purpose is we want to plant the seeds. Even if there's OCs, no OC in the building, we hope that there can be residents with more knowledge in building management and become more interested in the management. So whenever the need arises, we can rely on the network to get together the residents for discussion. We also hope that the RLA owners and tenants can be gathered together to share experiences and knowledge on building management. And another important purpose is, in the absence of an OC, for any information in relation to the building itself or other social issues that the government wants to convey to the residents, we hope that the RLA can identify and contact the residents in the building to provide them with the information. As for recruitment itself, on the one hand, we rely on the advisory service through property management company to knock on the doors of each household to see who would like to be an RLA. But that's a labor-intensive work and costs a lot of resources. And we also stage workshops and so forth, or seminars to encourage tenants, owners to become RLAs. And also the district office whenever the colleagues of the office come into contact with any interested residents, we would see where they are willing to become RLA. The Home Affairs Department or District Office would organize seminars, workshops on building management from time to time. For any residents from 3 new buildings, we'll see if they're interested in joining the RLA scheme. As for the effectiveness, in the past few years, we have recruited a certain number of ambassadors, and through them, more than 400 OCs have been set up through contacting such ambassadors. To sum up, with all the measures, the number of 3 new buildings has decreased from 6,600 in mid-2011 to about 5,300 in March this year. I think that's the end of my introduction. Thank you. So, members, questions? Mr. Chang Ming-shun. Well, building management, the 3 new buildings, I agree. The district office have done a lot in providing help to them. And it's difficult to form an OC, I know, in the 3 new buildings, because often there are a lot of elderly people living there. I agree with the department that, well, you need to take various approaches to encourage the formation of OC or through recruiting ambassadors and so forth. But on the support for 3 new buildings, the advisory service scheme, altogether so far, about 500 buildings have set up or reactivated OCs. So how do you judge the effectiveness of the scheme? There are about 5,000 plus 3 new buildings in Hong Kong. So over the past few years, you sort of dealt with about 10% of the 3 new buildings. If you think that the outcome is effective, would you step up your efforts or double your efforts so that more 3 new buildings would be willing to join the advisory service scheme? Or can you identify any incentives for 3 new buildings to join the advisory service schemes so that the scheme can be more effective? Didi? Thank you, Mr. Chang. On the building management professional advisory service, we are satisfied with its effectiveness. Besides the indicators like over the past 3 phases, we have set up or reactivated about 500 OCs, as you heard. The number of buildings actually reduced from 6,600 to 5,300. We won't be complacent. Therefore, in the years ahead, at the end of the phase 3, we will carry out a review, the effectiveness, to see what should be the next step ahead. And besides that, through the setting up of OC, where OC is only one indicator, and as I said, the consultancy or advisory service, the incentive is in line with the support or supported schemes launched by other bureaus, like as I said at the last meeting, maintenance subsidy scheme. All of these subsidy schemes require the presence of OCs because that would provide a basis for getting the subsidy. So you find that the advisory service, together with other government support schemes, they will provide the incentive, enhance the incentives for setting up OCs, and also they can also, together with various government policies, assist the OCs to apply for the support they need. We feel that the professional advisory service scheme, together with other financial support offered by the government, I think the overall effectiveness would be further enhanced. So we're going to continue to review the scheme. As for users' opinions, from what we received, the feedback, that is, whether is the owners who have been visited by us, or the RLAs, or the OCs that have been formed. The users' feedback is very positive. So we feel that the effectiveness is satisfactory to us. Yes, I agree. The advisory service, I think you can further enhance it and see how to make it more effective. But for some buildings where OCs cannot be formed, then you need to do more work in providing short-term support. You said that there are other kinds, various works being done, but I hope that the department can consider 2 points. One is the environmental hygiene, and secondly is the fire safety. Pay more attention to those 2 aspects, please, because some individual districts, there are pilot schemes in place to help buildings carry out large-scale cleanup. I hope that you can consider, being more proactive. Like in some old districts, the environmental hygiene is very bad, particularly in the alleys, rooftops, podiums. There's a large pile of rubbish. The owners want to get them cleaned up, but because there's no LCs, they can't do anything. So I hope that now we have the territory-wide cleanup campaign. I hope that you can more proactively help the aged buildings to at least have at least one-off cleanup work to improve environmental hygiene, and then you can later on encourage the 3 new buildings to improve environmental hygiene. Didi? Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you said, under the district-led project for various districts, we have launched one-off cleanup service for 3 new buildings. We hope that through the cleaning services, even though keeping a building clean is the responsibility of owners, but through the one-off support project, we hope that owners would learn from the example of the service what is good building management and how they can improve their living environment, and hopefully they can be encouraged then to form an OC so that it can do more in the future to improve on the environmental hygiene and improve the quality of living.
I can provide some figures. Starting from 2018-19, we have already cleaned up 300-odd such buildings under the district-led action scheme. In other words, there has been one-off cleaning for these buildings. And as we said, we are promoting the cleaning campaign in order to further enhance the awareness. As I said, the PMC under the BM Pass also act as a bridge in terms of enhancing awareness of environmental hygiene and anti-rodent and anti-mosquito work. We have provided the information to the FEHD. We are recruiting liaison ambassadors in order to help us contact 3 new buildings. And the relevant information has been fed to the FEHD. And it will be able to give the information to the resident liaison ambassadors so as to help enhance the awareness about environment hygiene. It's my turn. From the paper, we can see that 600-odd 3 new buildings have been setting up OCs with your support. But this is not a big proportion of the total number of 3 new buildings. Didi, can I ask you whether there could be other major incentives in order to help them form OCs? Well, we mentioned schemes which may be able to help owners understand what an OC is about and what management is about, And if they can see that there are advantages with regard to cleanliness and other issues, then they will be attracted to form an OC. We were talking about such pilots. And by providing more support, you will actually incentivize the owners in setting up OCs. Thank you, Chair. We encourage owners and appeal to them to set up OCs. But we do understand that some buildings may not have many units, and they may not have an OC, but they may have a manager of the DMC. We think that this should be left to the choice of owners. We therefore think that, of course, it is good if they choose to set up an OC, and we will continue to help them do it. But then there will always be buildings which maintain the view that they don't need an OC, and we will respect their choice. But as you said, if there are environmental problems or fire escape problems or even other matters, we can make use of the district-led action scheme to do a demonstrative effect. As we have the BM Pass, and combined with measures from other departments and bureaus. Well, I know that at the last meeting, the Development Bureau did introduce different financial schemes for mandatory inspection of windows and buildings and even fire service installations, and also subsidies for maintaining and replacing lifts. But of course, the basis for the provision of these services is that there is the existence of an OC. So the HAD maintains that kind of system, but then there are also financial schemes operated by other departments, and all these will act as incentives for owners to set up an OC. But we must also admit that there may not be any major management problems, and some buildings therefore may not feel the need for an OC at present. But where resources permit, we will concentrate on aged and problematic buildings, including 3-nil buildings. Hopefully, they will be incentivized and mobilized to set up OCs, so they will work to manage the buildings in terms of cleanliness and maintenance. Well, in fact, I have sought an understanding into the issue. The advisory service may be one-off. And when buildings receive an order from the BD, even if they don't execute it, the BD may do it on their behalf and then get reimbursement from the owners. And some of the buildings may not have very good environment hygiene. And under Cap 344, you have 40B and 40C, where you can take over the management of the building. I'd like to know whether these two subsections have been invoked all these years. If not, will you consider invoking them so that you can help them do the management, so as to show them how this is done, and so that they might want the service to continue and then form an OC. Thank you, Chair. As for Cap 344 and subsection 40B and 40C, in providing a paper on the review of the ordinance, we explained in that paper that if we were to invoke those subsections, the threshold is quite high. We need to ensure that the relevant building is in such a state that there are risks. We understand there may be many 3-nil buildings where there is an environment hygiene problem, but these buildings may not be in danger. When we see that a building is in a miserable state, we will already do a one-off cleaning for them under the district-led action scheme. We are going to propose amendments to the threshold to say that if we should find that an OC has not discharged its responsibility, then as the authority, we'll already be able to apply for an order from the court to identify a manager on the behalf of the OC. We hope that by amending the ordinance, we can lower the threshold so we can improve the situation. While I support the proposed amendment, I agree we should amend the threshold so we can work in this direction to help 3-nil buildings. Otherwise, your present level of support may not be adequate. You may need to do intervention, but you must have the legal backing. Right now, the threshold is too high, and you are therefore constrained. You may not now have the power of entry because there may not be an emergency. I hope the amendments can help. Well, I'd like to add a point under 40B and also 40C in the ordinance. The threshold is such that there should be danger, and in fact the prerequisite is that there should be a management committee, but the management committee has not discharged its duties. Since 3-nil buildings do not have OCs, they will not have an MC, and therefore there will be no question of the MC not discharging its duties. So when we propose the amendment, we may need to seek a deeper understanding into the provisions first. But I have heard members. Any other questions? If not, we'd like to thank the HAD. We are able to end our meeting earlier than scheduled. If there is nothing under AOB, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.